Hi, I'm Stephen McCormick, MSP Community Manager for Tubblog, the hub for MSPs, and joining me today is Christopher Stevens, Strategic Partner Development Manager of Circle Stock Ltd, a business that breathes new life into network switches and other server equipment. Hello, Chris. It's great to have you with me today. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always good to have a chat and unpack what we do.
Fantastic. So before we get right into it, why don't you give us a little bit of background and tell us about yourself and what Circle Stock is about?
Yeah, so I started in March of this year with Circle Stock, and the role is obviously in business development, but specifically to come in and build relationships and align with strategic partners. So part of what we do here is make IT or recycled IT sustainable, cost-effective, and reliable. And a term that I heard the other day from one of my connections on LinkedIn, which was really, really brilliant, and I'll share it with you. It said the second use doesn't always mean second best. And I thought that really, really fits with what we do.
Brilliant. So a big part of what you provide, you've told me this before, is something called Remanufacture-as-a-Service. So could you tell us a bit more about what that process entails? Where do you source the kit from, and how do you think this might be a benefit to MSPs that might be listening?
Yeah, for sure. So a Remanufacture-as-a-Service for us entails acquiring kit from various different places. So generally it would be from asset disposals, but we've acquired kit from various different locations such as charities, MSPs, end users. We've bought through platforms such as eBay and things like that. And basically what it comes down to is we bring the kit into our headquarters here in Ferrum. The kit is extensively tested using our custom designed and built testing equipment. And once that electronic testing is complete and we sure that the equipment is electronically sound, that's when it will move on to the physical restoration. And we've got various guys in various different departments that head up these processes. And what that would mean is the equipment would then be stripped further into its component level and ultrasonic cleaned if that's needed. And then the casings would be panel beaded and filled and then resprayed using color matched paint, so that we can ensure that we get a consistent product at the end of what I like to call the remanufacturing engine. And in terms of answering the question of how that benefits the MSPs, well, what we've done is we realized that our remanufacturing engine only really operated when it was remanufacturing kit for us to resell. And the bigger picture for us is obviously sustainability. So we decided we'd open up that remanufacturing engine to our partners and end users and general customers, and enabling them to essentially bring their kit to us. We would remanufacture it as we would to the highest standard we do for ourselves, and then we would warranty it as well. So it definitely gives us the edge in terms of making that IT sustainable, cost effective, and we offer a warranty on it, 3-year generally, so that makes it reliable.
Well, that sounds very interesting, Chris. And I think you actually mentioned there about the sustainability angle, which I think we will talk about a bit later on. But just to kind of deep dive into the sort of manufacturers we're talking about here, that they're quite high spec, aren't they? The ones that you tend to service.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm and what we believe as a business, which is aligned with my feelings, is to stick with what you know. So the big boss is very clued up with Juniper. He's worked in all sorts of industries, in data centers and the channel partners, and has serviced and supported Juniper. So he's an expert in that Juniper field. And then our director of sales, who's also ex-Cisco. So we stick generally with the higher end, manufacturers, which is Juniper and Cisco, and some Arista, but not much. And, just to clarify, because always when that gets mentioned, you think, well, that's all we do. And that's not the case. I mean, we're happy to remanufacture any piece of kit. It just generally comes down to whether it's cost effective to do so. the time and the effort that we go through it's not just a case of giving it a wipe down and powering it on. So it's got to be viable in that sense. So yeah, we can absolutely, if a customer has a different requirement, different brand of kit, we're always happy to have a conversation and see if we can assist them, because at the end of the day, it's about the sustainability and the bigger picture. So we're happy to be part of that.
That's fantastic. So yeah, I think mentioning the sustainability part now is it's kind of the unique selling point, isn't it? Really about what you do. Yeah. So let's dive into that then. So you recondition or remanufacture a lot of this high spec kit. A lot of people talk about green washing and things like that. So they want to make sure that the sustainability part of what they do, whether that's reducing their carbon footprint or offsetting it, they want to make sure that what they're getting is genuine in terms of the sustainability angle. So how do you work with the people that you work with to kind of make sure that it is fully sustainable? What practices do you have in place that actually ensure that?
Yeah, that's always an interesting question, and I think it can be approached from various different angles. I'll start by saying the way I view what we do here at Circle Stock is it's very much what it says on the tin. What we say that we do, we actually do. So I invite anybody, they're more than welcome to come visit us here. I'll happily give them a tour, show them exactly, the facilities and the people here working, doing what we say that we do. And I think, the reputation speaks for itself. Mm-hmm. We stand by our equipment. And because of the procedure that we follow in order to get that consistent product, it makes it very easy. And I mean, we always try to advise, I'm a dad of 3, so we always try to advise our children, the ways that we should, grow up and operate. And obviously with, if you start going down that route of telling a lie, you have to keep that lie. And it gets bigger and bigger and harder to keep and maintain. So at Circle Stock, we just keep it simple. We don't question things. If somebody says, well, look, this isn't working effectively, send it back to us, we'll give you another one. We're not going to fight with you about it. Like, obviously, we stand by our products, and that's why we're confident to give a 3-year warranty on the kit.
Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there, saying about, once you start telling a lie, it kind of builds up, doesn't it, and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you can't afford to lose on that reputational damage if you don't deliver. So you absolutely have to get that right. Okay, so now getting back to yourself, Chris. So I've only met you quite recently, and when I met you, one of the first things that you said to me was that you love to network and meet people to kind of understand more about them and what makes them tick. I love that attitude. I'm all about peer groups and getting people to sit around a big table and just talk about what they're passionate about, and I think that's awesome. So what's your philosophy on networking? How do you see it?
Yeah, I'll try and keep this as short as possible. The networking, I believe, is a vital part of any type of business. The biggest thing here is by building relationships. So I consider myself a proactive relationship builder, because if I can sit and I can chat with someone, we will find common ground somewhere. And what I've realized in my almost 40 years on the good planet is that we are actually more alike than we are different. And the more that we spend time talking about things, the more we'll find things in common. And the moment we start hitting those touch points, then everything starts, there's that element of trust that starts growing. And for me, it's like this. If you trust me, we'll do business, and vice versa. There's a well-known author. It was actually a customer of mine in the past. And he very much speaks the same philosophy as Simon Sinek does about people buy from people. And that's exactly what it is. That's what networking is all about. It's about building those relationships, finding the common ground, and you go from there. And for me, sometimes you're going to meet people and there won't be business that happens. But it's not all about the business. It's about the relationship. So if we keep that in mind, you're going to have people, and this is my philosophy, is I want an army of like-minded individuals that are speaking up for me in rooms that I'm not present in. And I do the same. So when I get to know my connections, which is something, as you know, I keep in contact with you quite regularly. And it's not just you, I do that with everyone. It's because that's where the relationships come from. And when we get that nailed, then the business flows and your referrals flow, and we're helping each other and we're adding value. And that's the big thing. The networking, building the trust where we can add value. Pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that pretty much sums up the whole ethos about why you should keep these relationships going between people that are in a similar position to what you do, because you kind of like, business is all about relationships, and if you can build them, maintain them, people will get to know, like, and trust you, as my mentor often says, Richard Tubb. So it's kind of like you really need to keep it going and keep that momentum flowing, because you never know when they're going to be talking about you in a positive light when you're not there, which I think what you just mentioned there was fantastic about what they say about you when you're not in the room. That is absolute gold. I am keeping that one, Chris. So that is awesome. So I spoke to you the other day about the customer experience, which is something I quite like hearing people's take on, because I think everyone's view on this is similar, but it can be vastly different too. So why is the customer journey so important to what you do at Circle Stock and what you do generally in life? So yeah,
also another gold question, and I like these because it really it gets people thinking. And for me, a customer journey is only as good as how streamlined and smooth the internal process is in your business. Yeah. And it's that simple. If you have everything in place and in order, the customer journey flows nicely. And then if you've got a good customer journey, you've got good rapport with your customers, and they will continue to do business with you because it's a very painless process. So the quicker we can process orders, the quicker we can get equipment through our remanufacturing process is beneficial to our customers. And at the end of the day, I'll use the kind of term as we do in the marriage, where we say a happy spouse is a happy house.
Oh, and yes.
It's very much the same with business. If you've got a happy customer, then things are going well. And that's what we aim for. And, things will go wrong, as they always do. It's inevitable that these things will happen. But it's also the approach that you take to make them right. At the end of the day, the blame game doesn't help anybody. Let's just get the problem fixed. And that's what we do. Yeah. That's that attitude of, if there's an issue, we'll work with you to sort it out. And if it's a problem with the device, we'll swap it out. We're not going to beat around the bush for that.
Yeah, I think it's true that it's actually, it's easier to lose existing customers through bad service than it is to attract new ones, especially in the channel that we both are part of, because, you know, as I say about the reputation, a lot of people talk. It's not just our peers, it's our customers too, and they, you know, it doesn't take much to to get that bad rep. And I think that things like the customer experience, company culture, those things are really important now, because we're such a connected world, and to have it so that we're actually looking after our customer base and our, you know, and our partners, that is the kind of standard that we should all be aiming for. It's the table stakes of the 21st century, shall we say. So yeah, that's brilliant. Well, I've really enjoyed speaking to you, Chris. I really love the way that you kind of bring this kind of feeling of I always get something from our chats, and I think that this is absolutely no exception. I've just got one final question for you now. Is there a book that you could recommend to our audience that's had a big impression on you and your outlook on life?
Yes, absolutely. And something that you mentioned earlier, which I think is vitally important, is you mentioned Richard Tubb being your mentor. And this is exactly in that same way. I have mentors myself, and I mentor as well. And I'm sure you do the same.
Yeah.
Because, and I go through life with that, this idea of I mentor because I've been mentored. And it's all about paying that forward. Like my mentors have paid it forward for me, I pay it forward for others. And one of my mentors recommended a book. Perhaps you know it. If not, I would suggest definitely going and purchasing it. And I was advised to get a highlighter and go through this book. It's called The Breakthrough Code. And honestly, it will teach you things about yourself. And you will start connecting with the people and the story. It's really, really good. Easy reading, nothing too complex, but some really, really gold information in there. So yeah, get a highlighter, get the book, and highlight the parts that stick out to you. Easy way to reference it when you want to go back to it or whatever. And yeah, The Breakthrough Code.
The Breakthrough Code. I am going to look that up as soon as we finish this call, Chris. I will also put any links that we have mentioned in this conversation in the show notes that will be accompanying this video, so that will be at the bottom of the description. Well, Chris, again, it's been an absolute pleasure. If people want to connect with you, how can they get in touch with you? Are you on LinkedIn? Can they get in touch with you via the website? What's the best way to kind of do that?
Yeah, and likewise, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really thank you for having me on the show and taking the time to hear what we're about. But yeah, and to answer your question about linking with me, I think the big thing now is LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm available. You can send me an email. You can send me a WhatsApp. Give me a phone call. Send me a smoke signal. A note on a dove if that's what you're into. Anything. I'm happy to connect with anybody. And like I said, it's all about relationship building. Even if we on in different industries, a connection is always good to me.
I want to thank you again, Chris. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise. Thanks, Steve. I really appreciate it.
Well, that was Christopher Stevens of Circle Stock Ltd, and I've been Stephen McCormick for Tubblog, the hub for MSPs. Please like and subscribe if you like this video, and we'll see you next time.